Brew Strong is brought to you by Blickman Engineering, home of the Riptide. Visit them online at blickmanengineering.com.
Brewers, it's time for the beer radio you've been looking for. This is the show that dispels myths, tackles the toughest topics, and makes no apologies for geeking out on beer. Hosted by two guys that drink before they think. Jamil and John Palmer. This is Brew Strong.
Hey, howdy, hey, my brewing brothers and sisters.
Greetings, cretins.
Oh, yes. That's
you inspired me, Jamil. Bringing back the oldies but goodies.
You know, you find a winner. Sometimes you just got to stick with it. You know,
that's true. That's true.
You can't new Coke your introduction here.
You're right. You're right.
That's what you know,
got to go with the classic, yeah.
Right. People want the classic. They enjoy the classic. They're fans of the history, the incredible history that we have built here over the past 16, 17 years, something like that. I don't know.
Something like that, yeah.
It's been a while. Who knows? I can't even remember back to those days.
Yeah, I don't remember what year that was started. It was after meeting Justin in Florida, and so it'd been like 3 years after Florida, which was damn. What year was that?
God knows what that is.
Yeah,
I don't know.
2004, I think. Maybe.
I remember asking you. I was just like, look, we'll to come do a show with me. We'll do a show. It'll be fun. You're like, well, yeah, sure. And, we just had Chris White on the last show. I remember when I first met him.
Oh, yeah.
Which was the same time I think I met you, which was at MCAB in Berkeley.
Right. 2001. Yep.
Yeah. And I remember him and Dave from Y East.
Dave Hodgson,
he was there too. And I remember asking about certain yeast. I think I was looking for a yeast that would give me the Eyinger character, and was asking them both about various lager yeasts, and Logson's just like, yeah, try this one, try that one. He's like, yeah, those are pretty close, or one of them's the same. And but Chris was like, well, I can't really tell you that. I can't really tell you where the yeast come from. I'm like, well, which one's similar? So I remember that he was very very cautious about declaring a yeast came from somewhere. So I thought that was it's just stuck with me all these years.
That's cool.
You know what else is stuck with me, like an STD?
There you go. Our good friend John Blickman.
That's right.
He is stuck by us through thick and thin, hasn't he?
Like a horrible case of herpes. He's in there, man. He's not. It's just not like a surface thing, man. He's in your body.
He'll flare up from time to time.
Every once in a while he shows up. Yeah. And well, see, here's where the analogy breaks down. Because he makes things more wonderful when he does show up.
That's true. Yes.
He isn't painful, itchy, disgusting. He's wonderful, funny, smart, generous guy. That's right. We love seeing him, and we love joking with him. He is a brilliant engineering mind and has created some of the most innovative products for brewing known to mankind. So you want to check it out, blickmanengineering.com. And when we finally get back to having conferences and stuff, and when he's there, go check that out too, because he usually brings some really new, neat stuff with him them, and it's always worth checking out. And they usually have some giveaways and freebies and stuff. So check it out. Wonderful people there at Blickman Engineering. Wonderful equipment. Anything from your more basic brewing equipment, solidly built, to the turnkey pro equipment. They got it all. So check them out, blickmanengineering.com. He's paying for the show, so you don't have to. There's your reason why you should check it out. All right. Today we are doing Q&A, live Q&A.
Yep.
We're going to answer your questions. If you've got questions, you can just type them there in the comments section of the live on Facebook feed, and the lovely Bevo will capture your questions and pass them along to us. Let's see. Start off with this one. Rich, he says, beat my juice in my brew. No. Beet juice in my brew.
Oh, beet juice, yes.
Right. Woo. That seemed a little weird. Hello, Malty and the Knowledge. I guess we have new nicknames.
Nice.
I don't know. I'm kind of liking yours better than mine. I don't know. Let's see. I love everything from the Brewing Network, especially Brew Strong. Hey. I have learned more than I could have ever imagined. I truly value your opinions. Okay, fawning done. I brewed a red ale that my wife really likes, a Southern Tier copy of Battle in 4 Dimensions, as much as I could. On the bottle, it states, with a splash of beet juice. My question is how to best implement the beet juice and the type. I left it out last time. The only ones I could find locally were all lacto-fermented. I thought if I boiled it, the bugs would die, but ferment out. If it's added during the ferment, it might sour my beer, and the juice always contains sugar, liquid, dried, and crystallized. So bottle bombs were on my mind if I added during bottling. At my local health store, I found that they could press just the beets. But again, what's the best way to implement? 1 cup has 19 grams of sugar. Any advice at all will help, but as I have just started listening a few months ago and even listening like 18 hours a day, I'm still pretty far behind. If you guys had the time, an email would be helpful, although I'd love to hear it on air too. Thanks, Pope, and his deftness. Okay. I don't know what you are so deft at.
I don't know, but must be the witty quips. Yeah, must be it.
Yeah. I don't know if Rich is playing with full deck at this point. Let's see.
He wants to use fresh beet juice or
beet juice. I'm imagining Southern Tier is kind of throwing in some beet juice mainly for color. Beet juice beets are a common food coloring that's used just to give things a nice red color. So since it's a red ale, maybe they weren't getting the red they were looking for, and so they threw in the beet juice. I would look at a couple of possibilities. One might be just using the juice from canned beets.
There you go.
It is sanitary. It is. I don't know how much sugar is in it. You could probably use it as a priming sugar.
Yeah.
If you're bottling and you're using a priming sugar. If not, I think you could add it towards the end of fermentation. And I think most of the sugars that are in fruits, vegetables, stuff like that, it ferments out super easy. It takes just a moment, overnight it pretty much is gone. And I don't think it will mess with your ABV much. It might bring the ABV down a little bit, depending on what type of beer it was. But, if you're not putting in gallons of it, I wouldn't worry about it.
Yeah.
So I think you could just pour in some and, you could use the fresh beets. You could use whatever. The problem with the fresh beets is even somebody presses it, it's going to be there's going to be bacteria in it, and wild yeast. So the only way I think you can do it is to get something that's kind of packaged. If they have a beet juice that doesn't have like added sugar and things like that, that would be the way to go. But like I said, a can of beets, there's a lot of liquid in there usually, and
well, you could puree them too and use it just like any other fruit towards the end of fermentation.
Sure. Yeah, I don't think they're looking for a huge amount of sugar and flavor and color. I think they're just looking for the color boost. So
that would be interesting.
Yeah. I don't know. I've not used. I don't think I've used beets in a beer. I might have. Nothing's coming to mind at this point. Have you ever used beets?
No. I mean, I grew up in Michigan where we made sugar locally from sugar beets, and it stank when they processed them. So it's one of those things I've just never wanted to pursue. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Another question from Zach. He says about fading maltiness. He says, hello, big fan of your show. Just wanted to ask a quick question. Every lager I've brewed, all German styles, has had a great malty flavor on the first sip. Everything that I was looking for in that beer. Unfortunately, subsequent sips yield a weird crispness that can only be described as a vague sweetness and hop bitterness with no real hop or malt character. Is this a flaw in my beer, lacking enough malty intensity, or my palate? For what it's worth, it seems like the malt flavors come forward when some of the carbonation escapes. Beer doesn't seem overcarbed. I've changed my yeast strains, tried decoction mashing. At least I think that's it. Decoration mashing. So
decoction.
Spell checking.
Autocorrect,
Autocorrect, yeah. Low dough brewing, all to no avail. What are your thoughts?
It's a loss in maltiness from the first sip to the last.
Right. First sip
as opposed to
the second.
Yeah. Yeah. First to the second. So, but it's not a matter of the beer aging in the keg or, this beginning of the batch to the end of the batch. It's as he's drinking it.
Right. Which, I mean, you would have to think that it's palate related.
Yeah.
But
palate fatigue, maybe.
But it could be, there's something there in the beer that is, on the first sip is fine, and then it's kind of got to be binding with receptors in the tongue, and then and that's why it's changing. So what would that be? I mean, you would think, well, okay, any flavor that you get. I don't know if this is really true, because I'm sure there's exceptions to it, but any flavor that you intake in your mouth, pretty soon, sensory-wise, you become kind of numb to that. And so it seems less the more you go. And if you were to, it's like that first piece of pizza. It tastes fabulous. And then, by the time you finish the entire pizza, you're not noticing it as much. You're just hammering it in because you're a disgusting fat pig. But if you were to have another pizza the next day, it's every bit as wonderful again. Your palate gets a chance to recover. I would try a couple of things. I would, maybe try some water in between, maybe a cracker or something like that. Treat it as kind of like a beer judging thing. Also, send it into a beer competition and see what kind of feedback you get on it. The fact that he's saying that the malt flavors come forward when some of the carbonation escapes. then perhaps it is a little too much carbonation. He says it isn't too much, but that might be. It might be a possibility that he is, looking more for malt sweetness versus actual malt character.
Yeah.
So when he's talking about maltiness, a lot of times people talk about maltiness as a sweetness in the beer. And if, you have something sweet and then after a while, very quickly, it doesn't seem sweet anymore.
Right.
And that's generally the first to the next. This is a weird crispness that can only be described as vague sweetness and hop bitterness. No real hop or malt character. See, that I would think would be maybe,
carbonation
or water related, or, acids related.
Yeah. He doesn't say, but I wonder if he's eating things with it when he's drinking the beer, because that could, affect
definitely right
palate. But if moving on to possible contamination, a little bit of lactic acid may trigger some of those flavor perceptions. Diastaticus certainly pulls maltiness out of a beer if it goes on. Yeah, I don't know. It'd be interesting to hear back from him, get some more details, batch differences, time differences, anything he notices like that as well.
Right. Yeah, Zach, let us know. And hand that beer to a few other people and see what their take on it is. Another thing you might try is buy some classic German beers that are in good shape and drink them side by side and see if you see the same thing happen or it's different with your beer. So that'll tell you, palate wise, maybe your palate's just fine, and there would be something with the beer, and then we got to do a lot more investigation and figuring it out.
Yeah.
All right, let's take a short break. When we come back, we got more of your questions right after this.
Hey, it's Kaylee Cuoco for Priceline. Ready to go to your happy place for a happy price? Well, why didn't you say so? Just download the Priceline app right now and save up to 60% on hotels. So whether it's Cousin Kevin's Kazoo Concert in Kansas City, go Kevin, or Becky's Bachelorette Bash in Bermuda, you never have to miss a trip ever again. So download the Priceline app today. Your savings are waiting.
Go to your happy place for a happy price. Go to your happy price, Priceline.
Are you looking for a simple brewing system that's great for all grain brewing, but everything on the market seems to be full of compromises? Blickman Engineering has the answer. The Blickman Brew Easy All Grain Brewing System. The Brew Easy is a complete system with easy upgrades and a beautiful compact design, perfect for any size brewing location. At its core, the Brew Easy is built on two gorgeous Blickman Boilermaker brew kettles, a high-temperature March pump, and either a top-tier gas burner or the new Boil Coil electric heater. The Brew Easy adapter lid allows the pots to stack on top of each other, forming an efficient, strong, and compact brewing setup that comes in 5, 10, and 20-gallon batch sizes. Upgrade your Brew Easy system with full automated control by adding a Blickman Tower of Power temp controller, and make moving around easy with the Blickman Kettle Cart. The Brew Easy is modular. If you already own a Boilermaker kettle, you can build your Brew Easy by purchasing just the modules you need. The new Brew Easy all-grain brewing system. See it today at BlickmanEngineering.com and brew with Blickman quality on your new Brew Easy.
Back to the two guys that know how to turn beer into beer. This is Brew Strong.
All right, we're back. We're taking your questions today. If you've got any questions while you're listening live, type them in the comment section of the video, and the lovely Miss Bevo will gather those up and pass them along to us. Any questions you have about brewing, feel free. Okay. Steve, he has a comment on our older shows.
The
Temperature
oldie
control.
but goodies.
Right. People, they listen to these shows and then they throw it back in our faces. Well, maybe not in your face, but throw it back in my face. Oh my God, you said this, you did that. What were you thinking? I wasn't thinking. I was probably drinking, and I wasn't thinking. That's just the way it is. Steve says, "Hi, legends." People are coming up with some nice greetings here.
That's right. Yeah,
they're leaning in hard. I've just been listening to an old Q&A show from 2011. Oh my God, I didn't even know we were doing shows in 2011. I guess we were. That's only 9 years ago. Where someone asked about using an incandescent light bulb for temperature control.
Oh, yeah.
They were worried about the light generated and whether they could cover the bulb. I think a great alternative and safe option is to go to a reptile shop where they sell ceramic heat lamps, which are a ceramic block on a light bulb spigot that plugs into a standard light bulb socket. They let off a lot of heat safely and no light whatsoever. He gives an Australian URL for a Reptile 1 ceramic heat lamp. So I think you just Google or Bing your Reptile 1 ceramic heat lamp, and Amazon will have it to you before the show is over. Thanks so much for your show. It's been so much fun listening and learning. I don't know what I'll do once I've caught up on the remaining 8 years worth of back episodes, not be able to binge new content. Take care, Cobbers. Cobbers. I don't know.
Nice. Well, the
cobber is, but
must be an Australian thing.
Perhaps. He didn't mention if he was in Australia. I just surmised.
Well, light on fermentation isn't a huge deal unless it's ultraviolet light, and then you're maybe looking at some hop skunking. Incandescent, I'm not sure what proportion of incandescent light tends to be fluorescent. I would think it's a small.
Have ultraviolet, yeah. There is some, but not nearly as bad as like a fluorescent light, I guess.
Yeah. When I was writing How to Brew and I was saying, keep your fermenter out of the light, I meant keep it out of direct sunlight so that it didn't heat up, and exceed your fermentation temperature. That kind of thing. That's why I was, cautioning.
There's a lot of UV light in sunlight, so that can be an issue too.
So it's not a matter of keeping your fermenter in the dark. It's simply don't throw it in full sun and get it hot and skunked.
Right. Well, and I like Steve's suggestion because probably might be safer than a light bulb. A little incandescent light bulb. It's easy to break. There's just a lot of other things. It doesn't do well in humid locations. Things like that. So, they don't. Reptile heater's a good idea. I was a big fan of the heat wrap. The stuff they use inside modern heating pads. That plastic sheet. Always like that because you can just put that right on the fermenter. Yep. Get better conduction that way.
Yeah, I used to use a fermentation chamber where I had an air conditioner.
Get naked and float in a solution in the dark next to your fermenter.
It's an idea.
That's your fermentation chamber? Is that what? That's what I imagine it would be like.
Yeah. No, that's what they call that, the man cave. Yeah. No, the fermentation chamber was an air conditioning unit, and then a small, ceramic heater fan combination plugged into a two-stage controller. So temperature goes too high, the air conditioner kicks on. Temperature goes too low, the heater would kick on and circulate the air. So I could maintain the chamber in a very narrow temperature range that way, and that worked real well.
Yeah, I used to at one point, I made I would ferment lagers and ales pretty much side by side. I would have the fridge running to hit the lager temperature needed, but then just a heat wrap on the ale to keep it at ale temperature. And then I would insulate that so it wasn't dumping a ton of heat into the box, but it would just keep it from getting too cold. And worked amazingly well. I was surprised that I could do two beers side by side. So that's another possibility too. And a lot of creative stuff for, I think, doing the managing heat and cooling.
Right.
You know. And,
speaking of managing heat, I've often asked the Kvike guys, how do they ferment, at 95, 100 degrees Fahrenheit? For these Kvike yeasts, and they often use a water bath and like an aquarium heater in the water bath to maintain those temperatures, and that's a good solution.
Sure. I mean, I'm not sure you need to ferment really high, but
some of them actually do better at warm, 95 degrees. It's a much more expressive, I guess, or fuller beer character at 95, say, than 65 or 75. But anyway, that's one question that had come up.
There you go. All right. Eric was asking about zinc. He had some practical questions about zinc. He says, Jamil, I currently use Y-yeast beer nutrient that I believe has some zinc, but the amount is not specified. I'm wanting to improve my beers and eliminate excess FAN as a variable by knowing how much zinc I add. You have mentioned you use zinc monohydrate instead of heptahydrate, but I can only find monohydrate available as a feed fertilizer grade. For an all malt wort, is zinc the only nutrient necessary? Does that apply to extract batches as well? What is your source? BSG lab supply for the monohydrate. At what percent adjuncts should I consider adding back diammonium phosphate or something else? In that case, should I use DAP plus zinc calculated separately versus Y-yeast nutrient, for example? Thanks for all the knowledge you and John provide. Okay, number of questions in there.
Yeah.
Let's start off with the monohydrate versus heptahydrate. Okay, so one of the reasons that you'd use monohydrate versus heptahydrate is you need like a fraction of it because there's 7 water molecules in the heptahydrate. There's only 1 in the monohydrate. So you can use either. Either's fine. It's just, you're buying more water when you buy the heptahydrate. For a commercial brewery, it was worth our time to track down a source of pharmaceutical grade monohydrate. We had to buy like 100 kilos. So we have a kind of a lifetime supply. I have been parsing it out to some of my brewing friends. Did I tell you the story of how I took a kilo of it to Sweden?
No, you didn't.
Yeah, so to Don Magnus and Magnus, I think. So I put in. I asked my guys to get me a kilo, and they must have purposely taped it up with that brown tape you see, plastic tape you see on the shows. Looked like a kilo of cocaine. Not that I've seen a kilo of cocaine in person, but I've seen on TV enough times to say, like, that's exactly what it looks like. And so I'm just like, oh my God, what am I going to do with this thing? So I put it inside another Ziploc bag, and I just threw it in my luggage. I'm like, oh, well, what the heck? And then I'm like, wait. So I typed up a note that said, to whom it may concern, this is, zinc monohydrate. It's a nutrient used in brewing beer. I'm visiting a friend that brews a lot of beer, and I'm bringing this to him as a gift. And, I just like, I hope it makes it. And so I put that note in there, put it in my bag. Sure enough, when I got to my destination, it had one of those little cards in it that says your bag was opened and searched. And I could tell that they had, taken it out and looked at it. And, but it got through no problem. I was just like, once I agreed to bring it, I'm like, that was stupid. I'm going to end up in some back room at the airport, with pants around my ankles, explaining why I'm toting a kilo of white powder, internationally.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I just got to declare what it is and hope that it goes okay. So we were able to get a pharmaceutical grade. I don't know about using feed fertilizer grade. I mean, it is going into food. They feed it to cattle and stuff. So I guess that'd be okay. I mean,
yeah.
If I was home brewing and it was for me, I wouldn't care. That wouldn't stop me at all. I'd be yeah, sounds good. Load me up. But the heptahydrate you can get through BSG. It's a Murphy's, or it's a, what is it?
I think it's Murphy's.
Murphy's. It's a British or Irish supplier that makes it. It's kind of pricey, but on the homebrew scale, you're not using that much. I think at the size that we are, we're doing 34 barrels of wort, whatever. It's with monohydrate, it's like 4 grams or something like that. It's almost nothing per batch.
Yeah.
So that 100 kilos,
teaspoon.
It's going to last us a long time. And the way to measure it out is measure a larger quantity. On a scale that you can accurately measure. Get the best scale you can, or use the best scale you can, borrow a scale or something like that. Measure out, a larger quantity, like 100 grams. Put that in a liter of water, shake it up, get it dissolved, and then you can do the math to say, well, okay, I need like 5 mils of the solution, or 2 mils.
Good idea.
Yeah. You can pipette it into your batch, because you got to be careful. You don't want to overdo it with zinc. Because that can be just as bad. So, John, for an all malt wort, is zinc the only nutrient necessary?
Well, yes and no. Yes, but you're talking about yeast need, and if you're using fresh yeast from a yeast supplier such as our good friend Chris White from White Labs, that's got all the zinc it needs for that one batch. Now, if you're, serial repitching and not buying fresh yeast each time, that's when you need to add zinc. And that's what you all do there at Heretic, is you repitch and therefore you add zinc. Homebrewing scale, if you're not repitching, you really don't need to add zinc.
I'll say on, when we're doing something that is a bigger beer, something where like 1080, a little extra zinc will help with some of those, to keep them from becoming really slow.
Okay.
So I've always thought that a little bit there seems to help. It should only be part of the process and utilized in the budding, but it certainly doesn't hurt.
Yeah.
Even on that first batch, certainly doesn't hurt.
One comment he made that caught my ear was, he said zinc is a replacement for fan, or to make up for fan.
No.
Okay.
No. He was talking about, he wants to eliminate excess fan as a variable. So if he's got a yeast nutrient that has fan and zinc in it, and then he's adding that, you're adding extra fan, which you don't necessarily want to do, because excess fan can cause a hot ferment, and then and sometimes with the yeast nutrient, if it looks like the ferment's raging, you feel like it was a better nutrient, but you got to be careful to which fan. And an all malt wort should have enough fan in it.
Should have, yes.
Generally does. It's only when you start using grain-based adjuncts and you start thinning things out with like a lot of sugar that you run into that issue. So all malt wort, adding some zinc is definitely the way to go. Zinc, some oxygen, and you should be good. let's see, does that apply to extract batches as well? Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah, same wort.
Especially if it's a all malt extract. If it's an extract that has like a bunch of sugar in it for some reason, I don't know. I'm assuming something like that exists. I don't know.
Yeah. Again, it depends on the yeast you're using, is why whether you really need zinc or not. Mm-hmm. It's not so much the wort composition. If the wort composition has sufficient zinc in it, then you don't need it.
Right.
Well, it's a yeast need, not a wort push. If I'm making sense there.
Yeah, and there is zinc in malted barley, and should be in the extract that you're using. That naturally occurs. The problem is it's where that grain was grown, because it takes it up from the soil, and if it's in a place where there's not much zinc, then you get a lower amount. And sometimes you get enough. They say there's just barely enough in malt to carry the fermentation and for the yeast needs. But that can go down, and that could be high or low. So again, that's why I'm always a fan of zinc. What's your source? BSG lab supply. Like I said, we were able to find a supplier. My lab guy was able to find a supplier. We were able to order somewhere on the East Coast, I think, a large brick, and then we cut it down. We added some baby laxative to it, and put it in little bags. Let's see. At what percent adjunct should I consider adding back diammonium phosphate or something else?
30%, I would say.
Yeah, 30% certainly. You can do it, 20, but you're generally good to about 20 or so. In that case, should I use diammonium phosphate plus zinc calculated separately? I prefer that. I hate it when somebody combines things for me and expects me to just use it that way.
I hear you.
That's my preference, but I'm an odd guy too, so there you go. Let's see here. Maybe we get one more in. Brian is asking, I'm coming late to the party, and I wanted to get your take on adding cocoa nibs and jalapeno peppers to a brown ale. Grist is as follows: 80% British Pale Malt, 5.4% of a Crystal 80 and a Crystal 40, Cara Aroma, 3% Pale Chocolate, IBU 23 of Kent Goldings. The plan is, after fermentation, rest the beer on the cocoa nibs for several days, and finish by adding pepper for a kick at the end. Kick, maybe, at the end.
Kick, I think.
Sure. It's KIT, so what's your thoughts?
He was gonna sit the beer on the
cocoa nibs for several days.
Yeah. I mean, I would probably add them to the whirlpool myself. Mm-hmm. I think you get better extraction that way.
Right. Then you don't have to worry about any sort of contamination or anything.
Yeah. Get rid of the sludge factor in the fermenter.
Right. The nibs. I mean, you can use cocoa powder too. That's fine. That's what they process nibs into.
Yeah. Actually, I think cocoa powder is better than cocoa nibs. I mean, people tend to think, okay, less processed is better. But in the case of chocolate, the cocoa powder has been defatted. Mm-hmm. You don't have to worry about, oils going rancid and losing head retention.
So, and even the woody bits that you get with the nibs, they have kind of a woody flavor and kind of a tannic character to them. Once you get rid of that, I mean, making cocoa powder is the process that they are using. They use to make chocolate. So it's the step in making chocolate that makes chocolate taste so good, and people want things to be chocolatey when they're adding cocoa nibs. So I'm not that huge a fan of cocoa nibs either. I think cocoa powder is great. Cocoa powder you find in the grocery store.
Yeah, it's right there.
Can of Hershey's. It's got like a half gram of fat in the entire tin or something. It's not much fat, and it tastes good. Yeah. Let's see. And then the pepper at the end. Yeah. Give it a shot. I mean, keep notes and keep tweaking it until you get a perfect beer. Let's see. One more break. We'll take another short break, and when we come back, we'll have more of your questions right after this.
Back to the beer guys that make other beer guys look like wine guys. Brew Strong.
All right, we're back. We are doing your questions live here on Facebook. If you do have questions and you're listening, feel free to just go to the comments section under that video and type in your questions, and the lovely Miss Bebo will pass those along as she sees fit. Paul writes, ask about sous vide. He says, hi guys, great show. You do good work over there. I've learned a lot from y'all. Any chance you do a follow-on show to Brew in a Bag, specifically a sous vide Brew in a Bag episode? I'm picking one up today. Seems like an economical alternative to an all-in-one system. Many thanks, Paul. He is Air Force retired.
Very nice. Yeah,
thanks for your service there, Paul.
Yeah. In fact, my friend of mine, Doug Piper, has been doing sous vide brew in a bag. How does that work? I mean, the brew in the bag's a mesh bag that you put all your grains in. You put all the water in your boil kettle, and then you add your water. And then how does the sous vide part fit in on that? Well, the sous vide is nice in that what it is, it's essentially a heat stick with a fan or a propeller on the bottom, so it circulates the water as it heats it. And so you can do your usual brew in the bag like on the stove in the kettle, but instead of turning the stove on from time to time to keep it warm, you just get your water up to strike temperature, and then set your sous vide at the mash temperature. Insert the bag, start the sous vide, and now you've got circulating heating to maintain that mash temperature. The nice thing about brew in a bag is the bag is containing the vast majority of your grain bits, so they're not clogging the intakes of the sous vide.
Chop it up in the sous vide.
Yeah, and not sticking and burning like some things can. The sous vide heaters are fairly low density, and so you don't get a sticky mass on there or anything. They work quite well.
And so the whole purpose is really just to maintain mash temperature. Yeah. Actually, I suppose you could use it to heat your water too.
You can.
You just put it in, walk away, and it'll just go up to whatever you've set the water to. And then when you come back, you drop in your grains, and you just use that to maintain temperature for your hour or however long your mash rest is.
Yeah.
And then,
And many of the sous vide manufacturers have apps for your phone. So you can, set the temperature, monitor the temperature, have it, beep you when it's at temp or
when the chicken's ready.
Yeah, when an hour's passed and everything like that. Yeah. So it is a kind of a nifty way to do it.
Because I sous vide steaks and stuff like that, but I have not even considered using it for brewing.
Yeah.
Of course, I've got a different brew plant than I was using before. So, that's interesting. That seems like, and it's really not that far. What's funny is, my friend Matt Thomas, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So at his house, he's got his automated, he's been building, brew temperature recirculation stuff for his brew kettle, and he's electric fired. And every once in a while he'll sous vide something in it for dinner.
Oh yeah,
in his brewery stuff. He's like, yeah, might as well just use it for sous vide. So I don't know why I never, made the leap the other direction. But there you go.
Push sous vide to turkey when you're for Thanksgiving.
Sous vide a turkey for Thanksgiving. That takes a large bag to fit a turkey.
Yeah, I used a garbage bag. But put it right in the brew kettle, sous vide it right there.
Yeah.
Finished it under the broiler.
Some of those garbage bags are not food grade,
He's still alive.
There are some chemicals that come off of those bags. It would explain a lot about Push's current mental state. I think we've seen his quarantine photos.
Yeah, those are great.
Yeah. I started doing bacon wrapped pork tenderloins, and then I'll sous vide them first, and I vacuum bag them, and then sous vide them, and then so the bacon's right tight up against it, and it all kind of forms its own spot. Then you take it out, and you just roll it around on the grill, finish up the bacon. Oh, it turns out really nice, super moist and tender.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe I'll make one of those this weekend.
Yeah.
Let's see. Jeremy writes, he's got a hot break question. Hello, my brewing brothers.
Hello,
question regarding bringing work to a boil and the hot break. I'm having a hard time managing the hot break with my setup, and I'm wondering if there is something I can change to help make this a less dramatic event every time I brew. I have a 10-gallon boil kettle with a 4,500 watt electronic heating element. Typically, my pre-boil volume is in the 7.4 gallon range to get 5 gallons in the fermenter.
Okay.
18% boil off plus a minus a gallon for trub, etc. When I approach the hot break, I'm usually manipulating the power to my burner very closely to try to allow foam to build but keep it from boiling over. It usually takes 5 to 10 minutes of turning the power down when it is about to boil over and then turning back up when the foam settles down. After this teeter-tottering of heating, it doesn't seem like I get a true hot break to happen. I'm curious if there is a different approach, power management, additives, etc., that can help me be more successful with this critical portion of the boil. Please note my boil kettle is an anvil, so I'm confident that it is not the problem. Love the show. Keep up the great work, Jeremy.
Okay, well, the hot break is going to happen, whether it looks dramatic in terms of the amount of foam generated or not. It's a coagulation thing that occurs time and temperature. So if you're boiling and you're not at 16,000 feet, it should be happening pretty thoroughly. Well,
and motion also will add to that coagulation effect. And I think it's an interesting question, though.
Yeah.
I wonder if because there's times when you boil vigorously, and you can get those large chunks of break material. Or I wonder if doing this initial simmering when a lot of the break is going to occur, maybe you're getting smaller bubbles, maybe you're getting finer chunks of break material. So maybe it looks less impressive. I'm not really sure, but maybe it looks less impressive because you're forming smaller chunks versus more substantial looking chunks.
Yeah. If he's trying to kind of maintain that same vigorous boil and not worry about a boil over, then putting something like a strainer over the top would help, collapse the foam as it tries to boil out. That could prevent boil over for you.
And you could touch it with something, the metal spatula, or a coil spring type of thing. You just touch that to the top, and that might be just enough to break it up, and then that might be easier than turning the temperature up and down.
Yeah, spraying it with and water. Then there's spraying it with water. That's what most craft brewers do. They just stand there by the kettle with the hose, or
they get their kettle sized correctly, and then they don't have to deal with that.
Right.
There you go.
Right.
And I see a lot of difference in break material based off of what kind of malt I'm using.
Yeah.
Certain malts will really generate huge, chunky, curd, cheese curd looking, tofu looking stuff.
Right.
So that might be part of it. I think, like John's saying, I wouldn't worry too much. I think you do need some mechanical turnover of the liquid. As long as you're getting that and it's boiling, if you're getting some bubbles and vaporization, it doesn't have to be a wild, rough boil. It can be more what people would think is a simmer. As long as it's actually boiling and you're seeing little bubbles breaking on the surface and you're getting mechanical turning of the motion of the liquid moving around in the kettle, which causes those little proteins to bump together at the heat and coagulate and clump, and then that's you're getting the break material. And as long as you're getting clear wort at the end, I wouldn't worry too much. If you're not getting clear wort, then maybe that is the problem.
Yeah. Let us know.
There you go. All right, one more short break, and we'll wrap up with your questions right after this.
Learning to brew has never been so disgusting. This is Brew Strong.
All right, we're back. Doing a live Q&A show. Let's see. Richard asks, both Y Yeast and Y Labs have done away with the manufacturing date and replaced it with a use by date. My calculator wants manufacturing date. How do you calculate that, and why did they do that? I think that, I don't know. I thought that they always had a use by date, or maybe they've changed over time. I think it's pretty transparent enough because they will tell you what their manufacturing date is based off of the use by date. I think it's like 6 months or something.
Yeah,
is generally what they use. It varies depending on what it is that's in the package. So, they have a different date on bacteria cultures, for example, than they do on the yeast cultures. So I think that's a much shorter date. I think it's maybe like 4 months or 3 months or something like that, whereas the yeast are 6 months. Right. So what I would do is just reach out to the yeast manufacturers and just say, hey, what's the time between manufacturing and the best by date or use by date? And they should tell you, or it might be on their website in the FAQ or something. And that way you can put it in your calculator. Why did they do that? I think in the case of yeast, in the case of most places, I think most people are not that savvy about what they should be looking for time wise. A lot of people aren't that heavy into brewing like all the rest of us.
Yeah,
and that might
state regulations may be part of the reason as well. A lot of food regulations. Yeah. You use by or best by dates are usually what's mandated as far as food safety, and it could be to market yeast in particular states. They're looking for that kind of declaration.
I think they need it internationally, but I don't think they need it in the U.S. I mean, it might be. I don't know that state by state they have a regulation on that, because usually the FDA kind of covers that sort of thing. I don't think this is an FDA regulated thing.
Okay.
I don't know. I think beer ingredient. I think it's they leave
generally
it up to the brewers.
recognized as safe, huh?
Yes, absolutely. Yeast should be. Although what we learned in our previous show was there's a lot of deadly yeasts out there. So
that's right.
Go figure. All right. We got. We'll wrap up with one from John. He's got a polygal question, which is not the party gal, but the polygal used in the many grains in one wort.
Yep.
That we came up with. Good evening, brewers. After all, it's always 5 o'clock somewhere. Let's see. I want to try the polygal technique to make 11 gallons of a wee heavy. I have a question about brewing salts. Short version, how do I treat the mash water for the second batch?
You really don't have to.
Right. Because it's your mash water, your second batch is the wort from the first batch. So it's already been treated. It should pretty much be fine. I guess you could have a pH swing if you had some wort that was really a lot of roasted malt or really a lot of pale malt.
I did a porter mash, polygal, and stepped it up 3 times, and the pH did drop each time. By the third one, I was down at 4.9.
All right.
So it will drop, but just for a one-step polygal, mashing with the previous wort, I'd have to look into how to brew, but I think it's only like a 0.1 drop.
Well, and I think when we did something with more pale malts, we need to add a little bit of lactic acid or phosphoric acid to just get the pH back, maintain the pH properly. So you might need to do that. And I guess it depends on you're not going to have to add more salts, because your salts are already there, but you may have to adjust pH with an acid addition. But what if you need to keep the pH up? Should you start at a higher pH?
Yeah, you could. Well, if you're doing a dark beer, then certainly you could start like 5.6, and so by the time you're done mashing, you're down at 5.2 or 5.4. Yeah,
right.
You can start a little higher and to allow for that, but generally, I would almost say you don't have to worry about it, because the difference is not going to be that great.
True.
You're still within the guidelines.
The process is extremely forgiving, and unless you're way off on your pH, I wouldn't worry about it. I would just treat your water for your first set of wort how you would as if you were just making that individually, and then just use your wort after that. You shouldn't have a problem with that. So there you go. Enjoy your polygiling.
Good way to make strong beers.
It is. It is a lot of fun. That's something I'm so glad we were a part of. I wonder if there's there must be some commercial breweries doing it besides us.
Yeah, I know St. Arnold's has done it.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Cool. All right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a lot of fun. All right. Well, this was a nice, enjoyable way to spend the day, John.
It was.
Chris Ryan on the previous show, and always
good to see him. Yeah.
We could talk to him for hours and hours.
Oh, yeah.
We always find some interesting things to say. And,
good friend.
And some great questions today. And thank you to our great sponsors, Blickman Engineering, blickmanengineering.com. Check them out. Send a nice email to John Blickman for me. feedback@blickmanengineering.com. He actually checks all those emails, and he has commented on the nice emails he's gotten from you guys.
That's right.
Expressing your gratitude that he's paying for the show. And, you got to keep doing it. If you want another 15 years out of us, somebody's got to pay for it. That's John Blickman. And check out our friends at Brew Chatter as well. Good folks. They're up there in Reno, Sparks. And they've got a great homebrew shop with lots of goodies there. So go check them out. And until then, everybody, brew strong.
Brew strong, everyone.